The anime begins with Kazuya overjoyed with the fact that he finally has a girlfriend, but to his sadness, it is at this moment that she dumps him. In the midst of his post-breakup pain and hormones running high, instead of looking for friends, hoping to meet another girl, or simply seeking therapy, he decides to go after a surrogate girlfriend. What an excellent idea. And so he sets up his first date with Mizuhara, a beautiful, cute, and charming girl. And guys, help us grow our channel by hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. We have a lot more exciting content coming up that you don't want to miss. So give it a thumbs up so we can beat the goal of 153 likes on this video. And now let's go. After paying for the date, they follow the schedule and go for a walk in the aquarium, where he comments that he really likes fish. Later, when it's time to say goodbye, she holds his hand and says she had a great time on the date and goes on her way, leaving him looking silly and feeling special. But when he gets home, he reads several comments of evaluations about her and realizes that it had all been an act, including the act of holding her hand at the end. Furious, he gives her a low rating, and although his father has been clear that he would give him money to pay his bills and not to hang out at college, he decides to pay for one more date in order to say a few things to her. And again, she arrives with her super sweet way and he questions if it's okay for her to go out with guys she doesn't like just for the money. She continues being super nice until on the aquarium tour, he realizes that she researched the subject just for the date and starts yelling, questioning why she would go to all that trouble. This makes everyone stare at them, and she quickly takes him to a more private place where she gets annoyed at how she was doing her best, being a good girlfriend, and he kept complaining, being the one who hired her services, making him surprised at this other side of her. At this moment, his cell phone rings, and he finds out that his grandmother had gone to the hospital. And since it was still his appointment time, she goes there with him. At the hospital, his grandmother insists that she is fine when she asks who was the girl that was there, and his parents comment that it couldn't be a girlfriend since it was impossible for him to have one. This causes him to introduce Mizuhara as a girlfriend, leaving everyone shocked. And as usual, she does very well, posing as a lovely girlfriend to his family, making his grandmother cry with emotion that her grandson is finally dating. And after his parents leave, she decides to tell the news to her friends at the hospital, leaving the couple alone. Kazuya explains that his grandmother had been to the hospital a few times before and made some friends there, which leaves Mizuhara distressed, explaining that her grandma was also in the hospital and could not know about her work as a surrogate girlfriend. The two then hide in another room of the hospital, but his grandmother starts looking for them in every room, making them have to hide under the covers. He becomes nervous at her proximity and begins to have certain urges, which causes her to kick him immediately. At this moment, the girl's grandmother appears and discovers the couple, making the two little ladies very happy with the coincidence that their grandchildren were dating, unlike Mizuhara, who is not at all happy with the situation. Later, he apologizes for what happened, and she says that all they had to do was tell later that they broke up, and everything would be fine. He then tells her that his grandmother's greatest wish was that her darling grandson would find a good person before she died. He explains that he had gotten a girlfriend, but after a month she broke up, which is why he decided to rent one. But he is determined that someday he would introduce a real girlfriend to his grandmother, which causes Chizuru to slap him in the face and tell him that she never wants a date like that again. However, whenever he feels lonely, he could call her. He leaves determined not to continue with a fake girlfriend. The next day, he goes to college, where he is sad to see his ex-girlfriend. But an unexpected thing happens. He meets up with Mizuhara, in a very different look than usual. Later, she catches up with him to ask him to keep the two of them secret, since she didn't want anyone to know about her business. But as if it couldn't get any worse, they discover that not only were they from the same college, but they were also next door neighbors. She quickly goes into the house to get away from him while he is in shock at the coincidence. At his home, Kazuya's grandmother calls him and tells him that she would be leaving the hospital to visit him, making it clear that she wants to see Mizuhara. Not having the courage to tell her about the breakup in person, he begs Mizuhara to pretend to be his girlfriend for the last time, but she refuses, reminding him of what they had agreed to. After a while, his grandmother arrives and the first thing she does is ask about Mizuhara, and he lies saying that she would be late. Later, however, Mizuhara decides to snoop around to see how he was doing, and sees that his grandmother ended up suspecting that they had broken up, and he asks her if she wasn't upset, but she says that as much as it didn't work out, she loved knowing that finally a girl had liked her grandson and that, thanks to Mizuhara, she was able to fulfill her dream for at least a little while. This makes her excited to show up to make Kazuya's grandmother happy, making her think that they had come back together, and she is thrilled once again. After his grandmother leaves, he thanks Mizuhara for showing up. She then asks when he will visit his grandmother, which he says is every Wednesday. Chizuru then replies that every Wednesday he could rent her to make his grandmother happy, as long as he promises not to look for her anywhere other than on the site. On Wednesday, as agreed, Kazuya and Mizuhara go to meet his grandmother, and on the way back they both end up being seen by Kazuya's friends, Kaiba and Kuribayashi, who are delighted with his girlfriend, making him feel great about introducing a girl as beautiful as her. The two call the couple to meet them at a bar, and Kazuya accepts, making Mizuhara angry once again since the two were going further and further with the lie, but he explains that he would tell them later that they broke up. Having no other choice, she goes with him. But when she gets there, everyone is surprised to see that Mami, his ex, was also at the bar, which makes the atmosphere of the party a little strange, until Mami reassures everyone by saying that she was also already seeing someone else, making him sad since he didn't really have a girlfriend and wished to get back with her. Later, he goes to the bathroom, and when he returns he sees Mami talking to Mizuhara about their relationship, and how he was completely inexperienced and needy, which makes everyone extremely uncomfortable until Mizuhara defends him, saying how cruel and clueless Mami was being. However, Kazuya ends up defending Mami by saying that she didn't mean any harm, causing Mizuhara to leave. Everyone feels bad about what happened, except for Mami, who continued acting as if nothing had happened. After the walk, everyone says goodbye, when Mami comes to Kazuya acting all cute and invites him to her house, but she quickly remembers that her brother had brought some friends there and uninvites him, leaving him sad for not being able to go, and nervous wondering what could have happened. But despite having cancelled the invitation, she continues being super cute and thoughtful, making him feel strange since she had never acted that way during their relationship, and leaves him wanting to get back with her. At this moment, she questions his current girlfriend for the way she acted with her earlier, saying that she's a blast, but Kazuya, unlike when Mami talked about it, makes it clear that he didn't like her talking bad about Mizuhara. That's it, boy, stand up for yourself. He returns home and knocks on Mizuhara's door, worried that she is upset, but she says that she was not upset and that she understood that he was not over his ex. He then begins to cry in frustration, and she asks him if he still wants to rent her, making him emotional, and he tries to hug her, but she stops him by putting her foot in his face. After a while, the night group from the bar decides to spend a few days at the beach, and on the way, Kazuya wonders if he should be going since Mami was also going, and Kaiba tells him that it was she who told him and Mizuhara to go. I tell you one thing, this girl can't get out of the guy's boot either, making Kazuya think of her as an angel without even thinking that she was doing it to screw him. Of course, Kaiba then asks why Mizuhara didn't go, and Kazuya says that it's because it was too short notice, when, in fact, it was the lack of money to rent her. Later, Kazuya starts imagining how perfect it would be if he went back with Mami, imagining that it would make his grandmother as happy as she was when she met Mizuhara, and decides that he needs to settle with his ex on that trip. Seriously, guys, I give up on this guy. After this, we see Mami posting on private Twitter her real intention, to make the couple break up, only out of anger at his situation that he is already with another woman. Meanwhile, Mizuhara was also on the same beach with her friends. At the same time, Mami shows Kazuya her bikini and starts talking about their relationship, making him remember their moments together, including their only kiss, making him want to get back with her. At that moment, Mizuhara and her friends show up, leaving him afraid that his friends will recognize her, but this doesn't happen, leaving them relieved. Not knowing what to do, he goes to the bathroom thinking how everyone would laugh at him if they knew the truth when Mizuhara opens the door thinking it was empty and is pulled inside. He thanks her for everything she has done for him but says that, by the way things were going well with Mami, he asks if Mizuhara wouldn't be upset if he went back with his ex, causing her to get angry and remind him that they only went out together because she was being paid for it. At that moment, Mami appears at the door and becomes suspicious when she hears Kazuya talking to someone. He quickly leaves the bathroom trying to throw her off, but Mami insists on seeing who he was talking to when Mizuhara comes out of the bathroom looking like his girlfriend so that no one can discover her true identity, making everyone think that the couple was fooling around in the bathroom. In the group of friends, everyone asks the couple several questions, and they try to get rid of the questions, but Kazuya makes up several lies, making her angry. He then decides to take a dip in the sea and notices all the guys admiring Mizuhara, reminding him that she was too much sand for him. At this moment, Mami appears and calls him, making a scene asking him to help her find her bracelet that she had lost, and very naturally ends up slipping on a rock, falling into Kazuya's arms, and stealing a kiss. Meanwhile, in the small group, a girl in the class comments about Mizuhara leaving her boyfriend on the beach near other girls, and she says that she trusts him, not imagining that a kiss was taking place at that very moment between him and his ex. With the kiss, Kazuya remembers when he met Mami and how it all began, making him remember when he swore to himself that he would make her happy. But soon after, Mami apologizes for the kiss and leaves after conveniently finding her bracelet. Then, his grandmother calls him to let him know that she would be discharged soon, so she could see him and Mizuhara whenever she wants. When he returns to the table, he sees that everyone was thinking that Mizuhara was rich because of one of his lies. They were talking about having a party at the girl's mansion, and the smart guy decides that this was the ideal moment to tell them that they were breaking up. Kaib then throws a well-deserved punch at his friend and calls him trash for looking at mommy, even though he is dating Mizuhara, thinking that was the reason for the breakup. Kazuya says that he didn't understand the pain he suffered in breaking up with mommy, making everyone distressed since his girlfriend was listening to everything. And Kaib then questions mommy that she was also wrong to give attention to a guy she chose to break up with, just because he was dating another girl. Finally, a reasonable guy. Mizuhara then leaves, and after the dust settles, she meets up with Kazuya and tells him that his friends didn't know the whole story, so he shouldn't feel bad. He then tells her that his grandmother has been discharged, and she says that her grandma will also be discharged soon. And this is a great time for them to put an end to that lie. He apologizes for everything he put her through, and she comforts him by saying that he can be a man when he tries. After this, Kaib calls Mizuhara over for a chat, and Kazuya, seeing the two together, thinks that his friend was flirting with her, but soon realizes that he was actually telling her how he had good qualities, with an optimism that he admired from when they were children, and says that he thought he had finally found someone who saw his qualities, and asks her to give him another chance, and says that he bought 2 ferry tickets for the two of them so that they could have a moment alone. A better friend than this is impossible. At this moment, Kazuya starts to cry emotionally when he ends up being caught spying on the conversation, and thanks the friend he has. Then Mizuhara decides that since Kaib had made a point, the two of them should go on the ferry so as not to make him upset. And so, she says that they would get together one last time. On the ferry, Mizuhara begins to feel ill, and Kazuya comments that if he could, he would give her 10 stars for being such an amazing person to him, and explains that he would do as she wished and not bother her anymore. After a while, mommy calls him to ask him to meet her at the hotel pool, but since he was on the ferry, he says that he was busy and that he would meet her as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Mizuhara was getting worse and worse and decided to go near the edge of the pool to get some air, but she fell. Everyone is startled, and Kazuya, who until then had been distracted by his cell phone, realizes what has happened and drops the phone immediately, jumping after her to help her. Kazuya saves her but ends up fainting, leaving her desperate and calling for help while trying to wake him up, but having no other choice, she does the famous mouth-to-mouth breathing, saving his life. He wakes up all confused, and she thanks him for jumping after her. At this point, rescue arrives, and they end up spending the rest of the trip in a nearby hospital. When the trip is finally over, the two say goodbye, and he thanks her for going to such lengths to save his life. She says that it was no big deal since they are boyfriend and girlfriend, being in girlfriend mode because of their friends nearby, who think that the couple had understood each other, and he thinks that for her, a kiss couldn't be much. However, we see that the girl couldn't stop thinking about him saving her, unlike mommy, who doesn't want to know more about him. At home, he starts to look at the pictures posted by the class, until he sees a picture of mommy in a bikini, which makes him hormonal and starts to imagine hot scenes with her. But in the middle of his thoughts, Mizuhara keeps appearing in his head, even though he tries to avoid it. The funny thing is that, unlike mommy's scenes, Mizuhara's were cute moments they had spent together. And so, Kazuya realized that he really liked Mizuhara, and now there was no turning back. Days go by and his family decides to go on a trip so that his grandmother can relax and recover. When he gets there, he is surprised to see that she had invited Mizuhara's grandmother too. The two of them would stay in the same room and give him the key to his room. But as soon as he leaves, we realize that the two ladies were up to something. When he gets to his room, he sees Mizuhara coming out of the bathroom. He doesn't understand what has happened, but Mizuhara, who was no fool, understands that their grandmothers had set it up. They then question the two, but they say that they could stay in the same room since they are boyfriend and girlfriend. She then explains that it wouldn't be possible because they have never done that, but the grandmothers call them coy and give them permission to do whatever they want, thinking it's like in their time when there was no TV. Back in the room, the two think that the only solution would be to pay for another room, but they were both out of money, making Kazuya question since she was so expensive. She then decides to take the time to enjoy herself and says that they would tell their grandmothers that they broke up. But upon arriving at the scoop, she meets up with Kazuya's grandmother. The two talk, and the grandmother says that she was like a ray of light that lit up her family and comments that that was the day her husband had left, but that it was okay because she had gotten over it and met her beloved grandson's girlfriend. And thanks to her, that day became special. Mizuhara then feels bad and asks what she would think if she knew she was lying. But the grandma says that everyone lies, and even if Mizuhara were an alien, she would still like her, causing her to give up talking about the breakup. Later, the two decide to enjoy their trip, and when it's time for bed, Kazuya says he's going to sleep in the hallway, but she says they could sleep in the same room with no problem. And the boy, who can't control his hormones, immediately thinks it's silly, making Mizuhara kick him, realizing his face, and then says that she didn't ask him to sleep there out of interest, and says that if he tries anything, they will see each other in court. At night, he can't sleep, wondering what Mizuhara must think about him. He thinks about how much more mature she was than him and how he wanted to get to know her better. He then starts to say that he didn't want to break up because he felt that with her, he could become a better person. She replies that he can keep renting her, since part of her job was to help her clients, and since his main goal was to get a new girlfriend to introduce to his grandmother, she would continue to be his rent girlfriend until then, helping him to improve himself. A few days pass, and they tell Kazuya's friends the news about their continued relationship, which makes everyone happy, except Mommy, who was watching from afar. Later, Mizuhara reinforces to him that dating should be paid for, and he could be honest in his evaluations about the service, but Kazuya couldn't be more delighted with Mizuhara's dating mode. She then notices his cell phone that was all broken, and he explains that he ended up breaking it when he jumped off the ferry but reassures her that it still worked. He questions again if he will ever get a girlfriend, but she reassures him that she will be there to help him and for him to stay positive. As they were about to leave, they bump into Kuribayashi, who tells them the news. He was also dating. Before they could say anything, he decides to set up a couples meeting. Afterwards, Kazuya is left wondering how even his friend got a girlfriend and he was still with a rent girl, when suddenly he bumps into a girl with a bow tie, who leaves in anger. On the day of the couples meeting, Kazuya finds out that the girl was his friend's girlfriend named Ruka. They then start to have fun on a climbing wall, and after a while, Ruka calls Mizuhara to go upstairs. When they get there, she confesses to knowing that Mizuhara was a rent girlfriend. Mizuhara then denies it, playing dumb, and returns to warn Kazuya that their secret was at risk. The two are distressed and take a moment, when Kuribayashi leaves, to try to explain to Ruka that they were boyfriend and girlfriend, but she asks them to kiss as proof. At the same time, Mizuhara starts to approach Kazuya but kisses him with her hand in front of her and covers them, so that Ruka wouldn't realize that it was a fake kiss, giving the excuse that it was because they were in a public place, while Kazuya almost has a fit with their almost kiss. But Ruka is not convinced since she didn't actually see the kiss, leaving the two of them afraid of being discovered. When his friend returns, Kazuya quickly makes an excuse saying that Mizuhara needed to go to end the date. She then leaves as the three walk together, with Kazuya determined not to leave the couple alone, afraid that Ruka will tell Kuribayashi the truth, but she quickly says goodbye and goes on her way. He then decides to do the worst thing he could do at that moment, go after the girl to try to convince her to keep quiet, but this only makes Ruka sure that she was indeed right about Mizuhara being a rent girlfriend. He starts following Ruka, who questions why it would be so bad for someone to find out about them, figuring that he must have rented Mizuhara for some silly reason, but she is surprised by his motives after he briefly explains the story. In the midst of the confusion, the girl trips and falls down the stairs, and Kazuya rushes to protect her, putting them in a delicate position. He then begs Ruka not to say anything, saying that if not for him, for her to do it for Mizuhara, who is the best girlfriend in the world, showing a concern beyond what he should have for a simple rent girlfriend. Ruka then confesses that she is also a surrogate girlfriend. He later tells the discovery to Mizuhara, who upon researching her name, proves that Ruka told the truth, making sense that she knew about Mizuhara since they were in the same profession, but the two still had to figure out a way to get her to keep her beak shut. The next day, Kazuya awaits Kuribayashi's arrival when Ruka shows up infiltrating the college. Kazuya wonders what his friend would think seeing them together, when Ruka herself shows up, and Kazuya runs into a room to hide, but Kuribayashi finds them strange seeing the two together. Ruka then thanks him for renting her, making the poor guy leave embarrassed that he was exposed. After this, Kazuya tells Mizuhara over the intercom what had happened when Ruka appears. This girl was everywhere. She explains that his friend had once commented on where he lived when passing near there, and to his misfortune, Ruka identifies Mizuhara's voice, questioning how they were too close for a lying couple. She then promises to keep their secret, on the condition that she dates Kazuya. What a super normal girl. She explains that the way he cares about a rent girlfriend made her think that he must be an amazing boyfriend. They then ask for a moment alone, and Mizuhara asks Kazuya how he feels about the girl, and he says that he thinks she's pretty, but if he were to take his feelings into account, it wouldn't be fair to her, and Mizuhara then says that being so, he shouldn't date her, since if he gave in at that moment, she would blackmail him forever, but they would still have the problem of her spreading their secret, and Kazuya decides that he would tell the truth to his friend, and since they share the same secret, he must agree not to spread it. So, to get away from Ruka, he tries to escape through the balcony, but she eventually notices and chases after him, starting to beg him to date her. She cries so much that Mizuhara feels sorry for her and asks Kazuya to give in, since she wouldn't give up blackmailing them, and since they knew where they studied and lived, it was too risky. And so, Kazuya agrees to date her as a kind of test to give Ruka a chance, but she won't leave him alone, being too clingy and demanding attention all the time, leaving him distressed, and he decides that he needs to find a way to get away from her. With Christmas coming up, Kazuya thinks about what to do on that date, and has the idea of booking Mizuhara for them to spend some time together, but when he logs onto the site, he sees that she was already busy because she was at the top of the list of new rent girlfriends. He begins to wonder why she has that job since it seemed to be neither for money nor ambition. But since he would have no way of knowing the reason, he gives up thinking about it, realizing that he would be spending Christmas Eve alone. He leaves home a little sad when he sees Mizuhara meeting up with another guy named Umi, which makes him nervous. As he takes a closer look at him, he wonders why someone handsome would rent a girlfriend, making him think for the first time about the possibility of her actually having a boyfriend, since being a rent girlfriend would not prevent her from having a real relationship. He then thinks that it would be rude of her to act all cute with the customers having a boyfriend, feeling betrayed, and decides to follow the two on behalf of all her customers. After spending the day following the couple, he is too depressed to continue and finally decides to leave. However, he stops by the bathroom, where he meets up with Umi, who makes a phone call talking about Mizuhara. After Kazuya hears some suspicious things in the phone call, he becomes afraid that the girl is in on a scam and decides to follow them again to protect her. But just as the two are about to kiss, Kazuya gets desperate and is discovered. He then finds out that there was actually no kiss and that he was just fixing his earring, and that Mizuhara is an actress and Umi was a friend who was helping her get into acting. And she explains that she is a rent girlfriend as a way to train acting. He then feels extremely bad for following them around all day. Although Mizuhara is not happy about the situation, she ignores it by giving him a present, a cell phone case, since he had broken his cell phone to save her and she had kind of abandoned him in a somewhat toxic relationship with Ruka, leaving him all emotional about the present. Some time later, he gets a job at a karaoke place, and since he is an extremely needy guy, we see that he continues to be all silly with his cell phone cover, feeling special. But once again he finds out that it is something common for her when he reads the comments of the other customers. And the clueless guy decides to ask Mizuhara why she gives gifts to the customers. And she says that this is part of being a girlfriend and it wouldn't be a problem, unless he was having feelings for her. But since they were only together for his grandmother, it wasn't a problem. After this, Ruka sees the two of them together and feels betrayed and immediately takes Kazuya away, making the poor guy look like he is begging for help. As she tries hard to please him and he doesn't seem to respond, Ruka drags him to a motel, driving the guy crazy. He tries to run away, but can't, and she is left watching him chirp. But then she explains that she took him there just so she could better understand how he got involved with Mizuhara. He then explains that it was because of his grandmother, and Ruka, being sensible for the first time in the story, says that they can't keep up that lie for the rest of their lives. She says that to solve the problem he would just have to introduce her to his grandmother. But he explains that it is complicated because she had already become attached to Mizuhara and it would be difficult to replace her. Ruka then reminds him that he couldn't have sex with Mizuhara, making it clear that with her he already could, making more sense of why he was having that conversation in that place. This causes Kazuya to despair and flee to the bathroom immediately, but by the time he comes out, she is gone. In the new year, Kazuya and Mizuhara arrange to spend the afternoon with his family. But everyone is surprised when Ruka shows up at the meeting as if everything was normal. She had seen the message from her grandmother arranging the meeting when Kazuya had gone to the motel bathroom and had the bright idea to show up there. His family then asks who she was, and the clueless girl claims to be Kazuya's girlfriend, making his grandmother furious, thinking he was cheating on the precious Mizuhara. To get away with this, he ends up inventing that she was a friend of Mizuhara's who is a liar and compulsive. But Mizuhara didn't have the courage to undo the friendship because she is a good person. Since it was difficult for Mizuhara to accept a betrayal, and even more difficult to have two beautiful girls want him, his grandmother believes the lie. Near the bathroom, Mizuhara questions what Ruka was doing there, and she says it's about time their lie ended, and Mizuhara let her take over as his girlfriend, questioning Mizuhara if she wanted to continue being his girlfriend, saying he deserves a real girlfriend. At lunch, the novel continues with Kazuya's family getting a yellow smile for Raku, making her weird. She goes out with him and questions what was going on, and he explains that he had to lie, calling her a compulsive liar, making her sad as to why she, who was his girlfriend, even if only temporarily, should accept Mizuhara to take her place, at the same time as she herself also discovers the lie. After a while, in the middle of the tour, his grandmother rightly disappears with Ruka, and the two, realizing her plan, become desperate for their secret to be revealed. Meanwhile, Ruka was in a dilemma of how to tell his grandmother the truth, but she interrupts her thoughts, showing that she is happy to finally meet a friend of Mizuhara's. To get to know her better, she starts asking questions about how she was in her daily life, making Ruka realize that his grandmother didn't really want any girlfriend anymore but Mizuhara, giving up on telling the truth about her. At that moment, Mizuhara appears, being relieved to realize that she had not been found out. Ruka then talks to Kazuya, who understands the situation better, but he couldn't stay with Mizuhara for other reasons and promises that someday his grandmother will accept her as his girlfriend, while Mizuhara watches the two of them sad once again. Days go by, and to make Ruka's grouchiness worse, she decides to work at the karaoke place to spend more time with Kazuya. Her friends also go there for a walk and comment that Kuribayashi was missing and had given up on having a love life, but Kazuya pretends not to know the reason, which was surely the fact that he had been discovered renting a girlfriend. At home, he thinks about what to do with his first paycheck, considering renting Mizuhara once again, but ends up having a better idea. He goes to Mizuhara and asks her to be Kuribayashi's rent girlfriend, explaining what had happened. And so Kuribayashi waits at the meeting place, thinking he was going to meet with Kazuya, being surprised to see his friend's girlfriend who says she was going to have a date with him. He is confused by what was happening and thinks it is a little joke of the two, but he ends up going on the walk in the park since Mizuhara had already bought the tickets. After a date with the most perfect girl there is, he overcomes his relationship trauma and wishes he could have a girlfriend again. On their way out, the two notice Kazuya from a distance, who apparently has a habit of spying on other people's dates. She then lets the two friends talk alone, and Kazuya explains that he hired her after getting dumped by mommy, making him realize that it was really all true, making them both laugh at how they both hired girlfriends. When Mizuhara returns, Kazuya leaves so as not to get in the way of the meeting. At this point, Kuribayashi wonders why Mizuhara agreed to do this favor and asks her if she had ever fallen in love with a customer. She gets stuck for a moment and starts to think of Kazuya, but manages to get rid of the question with her sweet manner. Later, Kazuya receives a note from Mizuhara to meet her on the balcony, causing him to once again confuse things and think nonsense. But when he gets there, he finds out that it was her turn to ask for a favor. She tells him that she has a friend who was starting out as a rented girlfriend, but as she was very shy, she was having difficulties, and asks if he would agree to go out with her as a way for her to train. On the day of the date, they meet another rent girl called Sumi. Kazuya is charmed by her but is amazed at how super shy she actually was. The two walk, and just as mommy sees them together, the date goes by with him trying to get the girl to loosen up, but she barely opens her mouth to speak. In the middle of the date, he leaves her alone to get drinks, and she ends up being harassed by some guys. Kazuya defends her, making her grateful and try her best to give him a good date. But as he goes to the bathroom, when he returns, he finds mommy at the table with Sumi. He gets nervous about what to say and thinks about saying that she was a friend of Mizuhara's, but Sumi acts like his girlfriend, making mommy think that he was cheating on Mizuhara and that he was now popular with the girls. After he leaves, Kazuya comforts Sumi by saying that although she is really very shy, you could see how hard she was trying to make the date fun, and that she has the makings of a good rent girlfriend, leaving Sumi all happy and wanting to meet him again. By the looks of it, he's not going to get a real girlfriend, but renting is going to be crowded. Later, mommy wonders how a guy like Kazuya got two girls and decides to search for Sumi on the internet, making her find out about her profession. After a few days, Kazuya thinks about how he hasn't talked to Mizuhara since the conversation on the balcony, when once again she calls him to meet her at the same place to thank him for the favor he had done with Sumi. She also says that she got a job as an actress in a play, so there was no point in continuing with the surrogate girlfriend job, and Kazuya is sad because with her changing jobs, there would be no point in their continuing to meet. The next day, Mizuhara goes on a date she had already made with a guy she had first made with her, but is surprised to find out that it was actually mommy who had made the appointment. Meanwhile, Kazuya had his date with Ruka, and since she was trying really hard, and he needed a real girlfriend, it makes him start to consider making their courtship official. At work, he starts telling her this when he sees mommy and Mizuhara together. In one of the karaoke rooms, mommy tells her that she saw about her work on a website and asks her to sing some music. Mizuhara questions her real reason for renting that date, but she only insists that Mizuhara sing. After singing, since she had no other choice, the two chat while Kazuya once again spied on a date. Mommy says that they fooled everyone, right, but that they should stop because as long as this lie continued, Kazuya would never find a real girlfriend. Acting as if Mizuhara was the one to blame and even calling her a liar when she was the only liar in this story. The two then leave the karaoke, and Kazuya continues to follow them. He pretends to be sick to get out of work and runs to the two, wondering how he had gotten Mizuhara in trouble, who had done nothing to deserve this. When he finds them, Mizuhara was questioning whether mommy even considered the possibility that Kazuya could be the guy to make her happy, saying that he seemed to really care about her. But as usual, mommy evades the questions and passes the ball to Mizuhara, asking if she didn't like him. After all, the two had pretended to be boyfriend and girlfriend for a year, but she also evades the question and insists that she take Kazuya's feelings into consideration. But mommy just ignores her and leaves, leaving Mizuhara frustrated, while Kazuya cried in hiding. At night when Mizuhara arrives home, she sees Kazuya, who tells her that he heard what happened between her and mommy, Mizuhara then apologizes, saying that she did everything she could to make mommy get along with him. He can no longer stand his feelings and ends up confessing that the one he really wanted was her. But in his nervousness, he ends up backtracking and inventing that he meant he wanted her as a surrogate girlfriend, saying he didn't want to rent any other girl and quickly says goodbye to her. Back at his house, Kazuya wonders how he got so close to proposing to her but thinks that there's no way since he wouldn't stand a chance with a girl like her. Meanwhile, Mizuhara tries to understand what it had all been about.